For this experiment, we're looking at an equilibrium constant, and we're going to set up a calibration curve first. And I already started setting it up for you, where I've gotten partway through. But what we're doing is we're using 0.2 molar FeNO3 and 0.1 molar HNO3. That's this light yellow color. We are mixing it with a 0.001 molar KSCN, and this is in 0.1 molar HNO3. And then we're diluting it up to 25 mils with a 0.1 molar HNO3. So the blank, we're setting this up according to the chart that's in the book, was just 10 mils of the iron nitrate, and then diluting it to 25 mils with the HNO3 nitric acid. Number 1 had 10 mils of the iron along with 1 mil of the KSCN. 2 has 2 mils of KSCN, 3, and then now we're getting to 4 and 5. So 4 and 5 right now only have the 10 mils of iron in them, and what we're going to do is we're going to add the KSCN. So for 4 we need 4 mils. 1, 2, 3, and here will be 4. And you can see the color getting darker and darker with the increasing amount of our KSCN. And now we'll just set up 5 as well. We'll put 5 and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and our 5th one, 5. And the only thing we do now is we have to dilute. Now we would be roughly pipetting all day. We're just going to pour it in till we get near the neck of the bottle, and then we'll pipette in from there. So about there is close enough, and then we can pipette in to get up to that line. Okay, there we are. And now we'll do the same for 5. I'm actually going to need to refill my container, I think. So close. Need to refill. Okay, so we have everything set up, ready to go. So what we're going to do next is we're going to go over to our spectrometer. We're going to set that for 447 nanometers, and then we're going to fill up some cuvettes. So right now I have a tray that I prepared saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and B for blank. And we have our box of disposable cuvettes. Some brand new beautiful cuvettes. And what we're going to do is, the way these go in, as you can see the arrow here, that's where the light is going to be. So it's going to pass through this part here. So we're going to try not to touch that as best as we can. We are going to fill up each cuvette. So I have our blank cuvette here, and we're going to fill it up. Sometimes it doesn't want to go. And then we're going to pour it back in. We're going to rinse it basically and make sure we're coating it. And we'll fill it up again. And we can pour it back in and rinse, but we should be good. So what we're going to do after that is we'll make sure we take a chem wipe and we wipe everything down if we don't want anything on there. So there's our blank cuvette ready to go in the spec. So we're going to put that where the B is. We're going to do the same thing for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to grab a new cuvette. We're going to pour some of one in. And then we're going to pour it out just so we are rinsing. That's the whole goal, is to rinse these cuvettes. Pour it in again. Last rinse. And we should be good. And again, we'll wipe it down and put it in. So there is our number 1. Make sure I put it in the right area. We'll grab a new cuvette and a new chem wipe. Sorry, as you see my hands. And the process of rinsing is making sure we're covering and coating that cuvette. And we want to make sure we don't have any air bubbles in as we're going. So I have an air bubble, so I'm going to just toss this out, get us some new, and hopefully we won't catch that bubble this time. There we go. Okay, a bubble is gone. So here's 2. And you can see it's progressively getting darker. Grab a new cuvette. Now we're moving on to 3. Rinse in. And we'll rinse out. That one had a little piece of styrofoam in there. Okay. And again, we'll rinse it out. So there's 3. We'll wipe it down. We'll wipe these down one more time before they go right in the spec. Now off to 4. There's a bubble in that one, so I'm just going to get rid of it. There we go. There's 4, all done. And we need our last one, which would be 5. And sometimes you just get this wonderful airlock in. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to pour a little bit over here. There we go. Of course. Let me get a pipette for this. Make our life a little easier. We'll pipette it in. I'm going to rinse it out. And then we'll pipette it back in. Okay. So there is 5. So here we go. Here's our setup. Our blank, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, getting progressively darker. So next we're going to go over to the spec that's over there. We have the spec set up for 447 nanometers, and currently what we have to do is put in our blank to read its absorbency and set it to 0. So we're going to take our blank, which is back here, this is the B. We're going to open up the spec. There's a little spot here for the cuvette. We're going to wipe it down to make sure there's no fingerprints on it. And we are going to line up the arrow overall with the spec here. So our arrow is pointing to this. We're going to close it so it can read it. It's actually giving us a read here, but what we want to do is 0 it out. So we're going to press 0. And that is setting the blank. And we're going to give it a minute to process. Okay, so it's reading the blank now at 0. So our blank was originally 0.18, but we zeroed it out to 0. Now it's time to read number 1. Again, we're going to wipe it down. We're going to set up the arrow to read with the arrow. And number 1, we'll give it a minute to sit, is 0.07. So the absorbency for number 1 is 0.07. Let's move on to 2. Okay. Number 2, again, we're going to wipe it down, putting this in, giving it a second to read. Number 2 is 0.18. 0.18. Now on to number 3. Number 3 we'll wipe down, make sure it's facing in the right direction. Number 3 is 0.27. 0.27. Again, that's number 3. Now for number 4, again we'll wipe down, set it in, give it a minute. Number 4 is 0.4. 0.40, or just 0.4. And our last one, number 5. Remember, this had the most KSCN. This had 5 mils. I'm going to wipe it down, put it in. And we'll let it settle on number. Number 5 is 0.51. Again, 0.51. So what we're going to do next is set up our actual test tubes, and then we're going to read those absorbencies as well. We are going to set up our test solutions next. So we set up a total of 5 new test tubes. We have 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. They're all marked. And we're going to follow table 34.2 in the experiment as to how we're setting them up. Now in this case, we are using 0.002 molar FeNO3 and 0.1 molar HNO3, and we're using 0.002 molar KSCN. And then we have again our 0.1 molar HNO3 to dilute. So what we have to do now is in each one of these test tubes, following the directions, we're going to put in 5 mils of the iron. Then we're going to vary here in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 the amount of our KSCN that we're putting in. So in this case, we are going to be putting in 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, 4 mil, and then 5. And then the amount of HNO3 will go 4, 3, 2, 1, and then absolutely none. So we're looking at a total of 10 milliliters per solution that we're working with. We would normally be using a volumetric flask, however, we're a little shy on those today. So again, each one will get 5 of iron, and then we're going to do varying amounts of KSCN and HNO3. So we can set this up now. What we're going to do is we are going to put in, let's just put in our KSCN first. So we're going to go 1 into 6, 2 into 7, 3 into 8, 4 into 9, and 5 into 10. So here it is. These are 1 mil pipettes. So we're going to do 1, then we're going to do 2, next we'll have 3 in the next one, then we're going to move on to 4, and we'll be doing 5. Okay, now this can move over here because we're done. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to add the HNO3. So in here we're going to have 4, 3, 2, 1, and none. So we'll start off with adding 4 in. Now we're going to add 3. We'll add 2. And now we're just going to add 1. And as you can see right now, our levels are even because we now have 5 mils in each one. The only thing we need to do next is pipette 5 mils of our iron into each one. And what might be easier for that case is to actually use a graduated cylinder. So we'll pour in till we get close to 5. Then we'll use the pipette to help us get that meniscus right at 5. And now we'll mix it in. So here's the number 1. And there it is. Now we're going to do number 2. Again, we're going to go 5. We'll get close to 5. Till we're there. And what we're seeing now is there's a little bit of a yellow color starting to appear. This one I went over 5, so we're going to take some out. So there we're at 5. And we're going to just keep going. There we go. Pour our 5 in. And our last 5. Looks like we need just a little bit more. And that is out of the FeNO3-3. Okay, now we're at 5. And there you go. So we have a little bit of a yellow color. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pour these into the cuvettes and then read them on the spectrometer, just like we did before. We have our cuvettes filled 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 according to the test tubes. And now we're going to run them at the same wavelength at 447 nanometers.